Between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans and the narrow region of the American continent known as Central America is Guatemala. Cradle of the Mayan culture, from which we inherited millennial architecture, built amid the frequently untamed jungle, which nevertheless seems to smile with pleasure on the flight of quail, the macaw, and the quetzal. This land of rivers and lakes, which fill the spirit with peace and mountains and volcanoes, which propose a vision of dreamy blue, contrasting with the blue of the infinite heavens. Over the still darkened rooftops, daybreak announces its arrival in shades of mango and watermelon. Little by little, it lights up the village, waking some nesting birds in the Central Park, and to the tune of the cathedral bell, the faith of centuries resounds again. Guatemala, images of our land painted by a divine hand. Guatemala, in the Valley of the Virgin of the Assumption, is a developing metropolis which nevertheless maintains features of the architectural style which accompanied the Spaniards. The historical center city exemplifies this style. According to custom, the city was planned from a centralized concept which brought together political and religious power with trade and commerce. Housing was contemplated alongside the central grid in square blocks measuring 100 meters, which expanded as the population grew. Thus, Guatemala, like other cities in the country, can be identified in a central area by the government building, in this case the National Palace, known today as the Palace of Culture, the Metropolitan Cathedral, a commercial arcade, and a recreational Central Park. The National Palace, currently used as a museum, exhibits in its murals and stained glass windows the Guatemalan architecture and artwork from the first half of the 20th century. The commercial arcade remains vibrant even after several natural catastrophes and social upheavals. The Metropolitan Cathedral, or Tabernacle Parish, is the church where the Guatemalan Archdiocese celebrates the most important Catholic events. It is surrounded by hundreds of doves which have made its ancient belfries their urban nesting place. The Central Park was at one time a place where many Guatemalans gathered on Sunday afternoon to savor a sweet-corn beverage, atol de elote, or feast on a toasted tortilla with guacamole. And with the doves in flight, some declared their love and pledged wedding vows before the altar. Informal merchants have set up shop on the city's street corners to satisfy last-minute shopping urges. Guatemala is, however, a city with much promise for the future. Modern highways and roads, hotel chains, restaurants, gas stations, countless shopping experiences are today symbols with which the growing and modern Guatemala city also awaits the new 21st century. Guatemala City has not always been located in the Valley of La Ermita or Valley of the Hermitage. In fact, the city has been moved on 4 different occasions to 4 different sites. For 3 years between 1524 and 1527, when these lands had just been conquered, the city was settled in the Valley of Ixinche, today known as Tecpan, Guatemala, in the department of Chimaltenango, and it was given the name of Santiago de los Caballeros de Guatemala. By the end of 1527, The city was transferred to Almolonga, presently known as Ciudad Vieja, Old City, in Zacatepeques, remaining there until 1541. That year, a terrible flood washed down from the volcano of Agua, or water volcano, and destroyed the city beneath. Later, for over 200 years, the nation's capital found its place in the valley of Panchoy, where it is now currently as La Antigua Guatemala, or Ancient Guatemala. However, the area was subject to earthquakes, which greatly affected the massive colonial structures. In 1773, a series of seismic movements known as the earthquakes of Santa Marta destroyed most of the city, forcing citizens to seek a more secure settlement. And so a fourth city was founded on January the 2nd, 1776, in a large valley known as La Ermita, where it was baptized as Nueva Guatemala de la Asunción, or New Guatemala of the Assumption, some 50 kilometers from the former capital. It was not long before the new city began to grow and turn into Central America's largest metropole. The Marimba Ensemble will now present Quetzaltenango's own maestro Domingo Bentancur with a classic tune dedicated to the Highland Train, Ferrocarril de los Altos. Antigua Guatemala. Almost 20 years after Pedro de Alvarado and his army conquered these lands, the city of Santiago was founded in 1543 on the place known today as Antigua Guatemala. It was the first capital of Central America, then Guatemala's capital city for over 200 years, until the Santa Marta earthquakes of 1773. Since then, the old capital was dormant for all that time, having lost its youth but not the elegance. New constructions did not alter the city's skyline, thus converting it into a true relic of civilization. For this reason, in July of 1965, the Assembly of the Organization of American States, Pan American Institute of Geography and History, declared Antigua a Monument of America. Later, in 1979, it was included by UNESCO as part of the world's cultural and natural legacy. That is why Guatemalans proudly state that it is part of humanity's patrimony. During the last 4 decades, in spite of the earthquakes, there has been an ongoing effort to restore the historical ruins which display the art and architecture of that era. Antigua by day is characterized by mysticism and the air of long ago, sweeping over its narrow cobblestone streets. However, nightlife opens its doors to a wide selection of discotheques. Antigua Guatemala is steeped in tradition, being the center of the religious processions during Lent. Thousands of families gather here to accompany the processional floats, which are unforgettable acts of faith. Paco Perez made his musical contribution to Guatemala in the place dedicated to the town of Chichicastenango, presented today by the musicians of Marimba Chihualita. From Antigua to the border with Mexico, there are different towns, ruins, lakes and volcanoes, marking the country's northwestern region, depicting the natural beauty of the Guatemalan highlands, which gave birth to the Mayan Aborigine and the Maya Quiche. Zumpango in Zacatepeques, El Tejar, and Chimaltenango. Then Los Encuentros, the meeting place. One of these roads leads us to Sololá and Panajachel. The road seems to narrow as in the distance we approach the blue waters of Lake Atitlan, which becomes lost in the intense blue of its volcanoes. At Los Encuentros, another road takes us to Chichicastenango, frequented constantly for its church and busy market days on Thursdays and Sundays. One of its most visited spots is the pine forest of Pascuala Baja. Market days in Chichicastenango, Sololá, or Totonicapán have a lot in common. From diverse mountain locations, merchants descend at dawn, loaded down with crafts and vegetables, to fill the marketplace with odors and colors and Mayan language concentrated on bartering the best purchase. Farther from Guatemala, beyond Los Encuentros, is Nahualá. At the top of the road is Alaska, Guatemala's most beautiful peak and one of the country's coldest spots, where the visitor reaches the forefathers' city of Totonicapán. Cuatro Caminos, the town of tour roads, is located on the way down. Heading north, approaching the Mexican border, is Huehuetenango. Facing east is Totonicapán, and in a southern westward direction, the traveler first reaches Xelajú, municipal capital of Quetzaltenango. Then on to the valley of San Marcos, where its green fields earn its name of Emerald Valley. Xelajú is Guatemala's second most important city and is affectionately known simply as Xela. It boasts a beautiful Central Park and its centuries-old land of the first railroad, timeless musicians, and the unforgettable moon of Luna de Xelajú. Which we will now hear played in the waltz by Huehuetenango's composer Paco Pérez. Lake Atitlan is known as the most beautiful lake in the world. It is surrounded by San Pedro, Toliman, and Atitlan, three of Guatemala's 23 volcanoes. The trip from Los Encuentros to Solola's municipal capital is short and pleasant, with Friday being colorful and fresh since it is market day. Once here, the 8 kilometers descending between Solola and Panajachel becomes the most enchanting experience on this trip to the lake, because from every angle the visitor can gradually feast his eyes on the quiet blue waters, weaving into the waves which grow in volume and strength as one gets closer and closer. These growing waves become fierce as noon approaches and brings in the Xocomil wind. Panajachel has become the point of departure for travelers who wish to take boats and canoes to visit the lake's surrounding villages. Lake Atitlan covers 125 square kilometers. At a height of 1,560 meters above sea level, it offers a temperate climate all year round and is recognized internationally as the most beautiful lake in the world. Dispersed around the lake, like sand on a Guatemalan nativity scene, are Atitlan's 12 towns, 2 of which are named in honor of the apostles of the New Testament, San Lucas Toliman and San Marcos La Laguna. In addition to San Juan La Laguna, named after St. John the Baptist, 4 towns bear the names of 4 Christ apostles: San Andres after St. Andrew, San Pedro y San Pablo La Laguna after Peter and Paul, and Santiago Atitlan in honor of St. James. These are some of the names of the picturesque towns which attract so many tourists. The musicians of Marimba Unión Musical now invite us to imagine afternoon tea, lunch or dinner, enjoying one of Guatemala's most delectable dishes, hot chuchitos, a delightful foxtrot composed by Maestro Alberto Velázquez. Bon appetit! During Spanish colonization, the Verapazes were known as Tesulutlan, meaning land of war, which referred to the difficulty involved in conquering this region. In fact, Friar Bartolomé de las Casas persuaded the Indians through faith, not weapons, to become subjects of the Spanish crown. King Charles V of Spain, recognizing the combative nature of this land, gave the town of Coban the title of Imperial City. At this time, the region included Petén, part of Izabal, and Belize. At the beginning of the 21st century, the Verapazes were reduced when new limits were assigned to Izabal, and Petén was elevated to the status of Spanish magistrature. In 1877, the Verapazes were divided into Upper and Lower Verapaz, Alta y Baja Verapaz, officially establishing them as departments. This is a region where coffee and cardamom found special shelter thanks to the varied levels of altitude. The craftsman from the Verapazes has also earned an important position in the production of typical woven cloth, ceramics, musical instruments, and fireworks. The architectural heritage is of incalculable worth. The Catholic churches in Coban and San Juan Chamelco, the government palace of Alta Verapaz, the municipal palace, and the church of San Pedro Carcha are just a few examples of outstanding colonial architecture. Folkloric dances are customary in the celebration of the feasts of patron saints: El Torito, or Little Bull, Los Moros, the Moors, El Baile del Venado, or the Dance of the Deer, and Los Convites, or the Invitations. However, the most famous is the Rabinal Acchi, or the Baron of Rabinal, the only pre-Hispanic ballet still preserved in America. This region has unique natural attractions. Lanquín, one of the municipal districts in Alta Verapaz, boasts such attractions as Semuc Champey, the caves of Lanquín, and the Chinahau mountain range on the rapids of the Cahabon River are in the municipal district of Cahabon. The Trece Aguas, or 13 waters, fall on the sulfur waters in Tamajú and the Chitan baths and springs. In Baja Verapaz, the exuberant jungle conserved at the Mario Dari, or Quetzal Biotope, is without a doubt one of the region's most attractive natural habitats. This park covers over 3,000 hectares of vegetation, which provides shelter to Guatemala's national bird, the Quetzal. This is also a land of orchids where visitors can find the Monja Blanca, or the White Nun, the country's national flower. The running waters which bathe these lands from the Atlantic to the Gulf of Mexico are truly the hidden secret of its beauty, since this is where the Polochic, Cahabon, Sarstún, Salinas, and La Pasión rivers are born. To the rhythm of blues, the marimba ensemble will now delight us by playing Maestro Gumercindo Palacios' Lágrimas de Telma, or Telma's Tears. northern Guatemala, El Petén conserves mysterious jungle regions. Small feline species, puma, jaguars, inhabit the thick jungle. Macaws, toucans and parrots fly among the trees. Monkeys scream from the tops of tree branches. There is so much vegetation here that the region has been renamed the fifth lung of the world. But things were not always like this. Long before the three Spanish caravels sighted land on the American continent, one of the greatest cities of pre-Columbian culture flourished in Petén. The Maya built Tikal and dominated their civilization here, which extended from the Panuco River in southern Mexico to the Yucatan Peninsula, Belize, Guatemala, southern Honduras, El Salvador, southern Nicaragua, and a small portion of Costa Rica in the province of Cartago. This region became known as Meso or Middle America, named by European researcher Paul Kirchhoff. No one is certain on the origin of the Maya, nor has anyone been able to determine exactly why they disappeared. However, their civilization did flourish between 200 BC and 900 AD, the classic period when the great pyramids were built. These temples, with two chambers at the top, served either as altars or small residences for the Mayan priests. In concentrated circles around the pyramids, the Maya constructed the residential structures, which they built with bajareque, a mixture of straw and mud, and with roofs made from straw or palm. There are several theories as to why the Maya disappeared. Some point out war or plague, disease and drought. Major evidence, however, points to an invasion by Toltec tribes from Mexico, which dominated and mixed with the Maya. Later, to become the indigenous people found by the Spaniards, the new Maya Quiche culture. These are the same indigenous people who wrote the Popol Vuh, whose descendants we find today in Guatemala. That first Toltec domination implied that Tikal must have been abandoned and eventually was overtaken by the overwhelming Petén jungle. The structures remained covered by the jungle overgrowth for many centuries. The vestiges found in Tikal reveal temples for cult adoration, the court for playing the secret ball game, the ritual stone, and an area where there supposedly was a marketplace. In short, this was a center of cosmic power, sheltering all the secrets of Mayan evolution and knowledge. The entire northern zone of Petén has been designated as Natural Reserve. The very heart of this region shelters Tikal National Park. In spite of the immense extension of land, this is barely a fraction of the whole jungle region here. It is estimated that there are still some 3,000 to 4,000 structures still buried in Tikal. From the mystical and magical Petén jungle, Don Filadelfo Cano, Maestro of Maestros, has stolen this part of notes from the oromigo wood, which he has assembled into a musical cumbia to perform with the musicians of Marimba Maria Concepcion in the rendition of Flores Peteneras, or Flowers of Petén. Esquipulas is the cathedral where Central Americans gather to pray. It has become a pure and simple center of faith, concentrating thousands of devoted Christians from Chiapas, Soconusco, Guatemala, and the Central American region. The Black Christ is the main attraction of this religious gathering. For many, followers attribute the image with miraculous powers through the intercession of Jesus Christ. This beautiful work of art was carved by sculptor Kirio Cataño, who was already recognized as a master carver from the age of 20, among a Portuguese family which had come from Mexico to settle and work at a shop in Santiago de los Caballeros, known today as Antigua Guatemala. The Black Christ, measuring over Spanish vara and a half, approximately a meter in height, cost 100 tostones, each worth 4 silver reales. It was taken on a pilgrimage to the village which would become its home on March 9, 1595. From then on, according to the Esquipulas calendar, this is the official date for the celebration of local festivities. Esquipulas was founded with the category of villa during the 6th decade of the 16th century. This is where the Spaniards and the Shorties inhabited the region. The city was established under the auspices of the Apostle St. James. Therefore, its official name is Santiago de Esquipulas. The Temple of Esquipulas was declared a basilica by order of Pope John the 23rd on April the 16th, 1961, the date in which the town also received the category of prelate city. From then, the village was elevated to a city in October 11, 1968. For a long time, the 222-kilometer distance to Esquipulas could only be covered by foot or mule. This implied that religious followers had to organize pilgrimages that extended from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the point of origin. Craftsmen in Esquipulas make tecomates or gourds, sweets and preserves, palm weavings, candles, and sacred bricks manufactured from a material known as kaolin. However, perhaps the most important aspect uniting faith and popular devotion are the crowns of colored wreaths used to decorate the vehicles and known as chichitas, and the palm hats worn by the pilgrims and resembling those worn by pilgrims who visited the tomb of St. James in the Apostle in Spain. The spiritual fervor of Esquipulas became world famous when the Guatemalan peace accords were written up here during the last decade of the 20th century. To the rhythm of cumbia, Maestro Guillermo de León and the marimba ensemble will play Las Chancletas de Nayo Capero, the sandals of Nayo Capero. On the Atlantic coastline in northern Guatemala is the department of Izabal, port of entry to thousands of travelers and window to the Caribbean. In Izabal, there is a perfect combination of warm climate, fertile land, and mineral wealth. In addition to the tranquility of the lake and the ferocity of the rivers, complemented by the Garifuna warmth of the inhabitants. The visitor can almost delight in the experience of walking on water in Puerto Barrios, barely 1 meter above sea level, at 300 kilometers distance from Guatemala City. This important port is located in Amatique Bay, where one also finds the port of Santo Tomás de Castilla. Both ports have the capacity to receive deep water ships at their docks, a feature which has made them essential to international trade. Puerto Barrios is Guatemala's first exotic window to the Caribbean Sea. On the shores of the Motagua River, on a plain where the humid soil is considered one of Central America's richest and most fertile regions, during an undetermined time occurring between 200 BC and 900 AD, a time known as the Classic Period, the ancient Maya settled one of their cities, Quiriguá. This site has a main plaza in which stela and sculptures take on animal shapes. It also contains remains of a ball court and the Acropolis composed of houses occupied by the government elite. Most of the sculptured monuments discovered are located in the only tropical forest remaining in the ancient valley. In the mid-15th century, a promontory was built to the northeast of Lake Izabal, exactly where the lake meets Rio Dulce, a fortress to counteract the sudden assaults by corsairs and pirates who at the time navigated the Caribbean Sea. This fortress, finished in 1598, was given the name of Castillo de San Felipe, or Castle of St. Philip. From this castle, it was possible to effectively counterattack the incursion of the feared sea bandits. Now is the moment to listen to the typical song composed by Quetzalteco maestro David Hurtado with the marimba Voz Paduana from San Antonio, Aguascalientes, Zacatepeques, playing Rey Quiché or Quiché King. Guatemala, a geographical location where God in His own hand painted a landscape, where the sun sets with skies illuminated in orange ring and red pitaya dripping among the clouds, remain unaltered, just as the city they were seen by the Maya. Our ancestors, who in retribution of that legacy inherited inexhaustible treasures. These are the same landscapes seen by the Toltecs when they came from the north. Those who settled in the original Maya lands became one of these inhabitants and gave life to the new Maya Quiche culture, wrote the Popol Vuh and were natural heirs of this land. Maya Quiche, who, amazed by the apparition from the entrails of the sea of strange beings with eyes of jade and hair of corn, sought refuge in the shadow of these lands. And from that encounter between two cultures, Guatemala was born. Vibrant, beautiful, and natural. The beauty of this heritage has overcome cataclysms, storms, and winds, and remains here, present in the pyramid, dormant in the volcanoes, moving like a serpent in the rivers, in repose, in crystal lakes, or playing with the wind. It is all here for anyone taking an instant to admire it all. We have presented but a fragment of the immense historical, natural, and cultural wealth this beautiful land offers us. We leave the door open for future productions, for it would be so nice to be able to travel to Escuintla, Zacapas, Santa Rosa, Chiquimula, just to mention a few places. On the screen, you will see our email address. Please contact us.